Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Super Paranormal Chronicles. Today, I am talking to a returning guest. We had so much fun last time. This is Philip Kinsella. Philip is a psychic medium, a UFO researcher, and author. Philip, welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I'm very well, Lee, and thank you very much for having me back on board. I'm delighted.
Yeah, and as we were just talking about offline, there's a big reason why I wanted to have you back. But before we talk about that, it's been a bit of a hot week in the UK. And you mentioned in one of your emails that you were melting.
Yes.
Is that still the case?
No, today has been an absolute blessing. It's been a cool 24 degrees. There is a wind, and I went outside to the back, put my hands down on the concrete, and I blessed the ground and the Lord, because let me tell you, and this is, it has been going up to 35 degrees, and that is hot. And all week you couldn't do anything. I mean, there was 3 days of 35, but it's been a very hot 6 days, and it's miserable. You just sweat. You can't do anything. You can't sleep. You feel irritable. You can't do anything outside or inside. So today I feel so refreshed. And I felt like that scene with the witch and the Wizard of Oz when she started to melt. And it's a wonderful feeling, of course.
Well, if it's any consolation, we're getting those temperatures over the next week for 7 days. But we have something called air conditioning. And it's great.
Our air conditioning is, for me, is sparkling cold water with a bit of juice in it. And I think I must consume so much sparkling water, it's only wonder I haven't exploded. And the fans have been ongoing. But we don't normally have that type of weather here. So, you know, it's very, very rare. But we survived it. We come through the other end.
So you didn't think that you had to go and sit in the fridge for 10 minutes to cool down?
The thought did cross my mind, but I don't think I'd get in it. I'm 6 foot tall.
Well, we have the big American style one, so we could pull everything out, and we probably could fit in it quite. So that would be nice. Anyway, let's go back onto the reason why I'm here. The last time you came on the show, we were talking about UFOs and such like, and you just happened to drop in casual conversation about your abduction in 1989.
Yes.
So if we can start at the very beginning of how all this came about, and then we'll discuss the actual abduction itself, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, Lee. I mean, the process of what happened is quite interesting, because people call you lifers or life experiencers. I don't think I'm an experiencer, because I never, wanted to have the experience. I'm not a lifelong abductee anyway. The 1989 event was the only one that I do fully recall, but Kathleen Martin, dear friend, who's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, has suggested to me and my identical twin brother that she believes that we had previous experiences in the past, and that does seem to be correct. But I will not add or subtract in any way upon what I know and what I don't know. But the 1989 event happened, and that was in the winter of that period, and we lived in a cul-de-sac in Marston Mortain, a village here in England, in quite a big house. And it was very strange. It's a little bit long-winded to go into, because I've gone through it so many times, but I'll just tell you that there were 2 parts to this. One of them was on a physical level of interaction, where I came back from work on the train from Bedford to Millbrook and walked the mile or so home, walked through the front door. They're all glass, frosted glass doors. Through the hall, my brother was in the very large kitchen diner, and to the left was the large conservatory. My sister was there and our dog Benji. So I literally walked through into the hall, got into the kitchen. So when I lay back against the kitchen counter, the kitchen bar was in front of me. I could see out into the hall with the open door, and of course where the door I'd come through, which was all glass. All of it was glass. And my brother was standing ahead of me, and my sister was to my far left. And the atmosphere started to change, and our dog reacted to it. And it was very strange, because there was this light that seemed to come up from the driveway, and I thought that our mum had finished her, I was 20 then, our mum had finished her shift early and was coming back early. Car lights coming up to the driveway towards the garage area to the other side of the property. But it wasn't, because as the light started getting larger, the dog started to bark more furiously. And my brother went into a trance, and he just looked up to the ceiling and he said, and I remember word for word what he said, there's going to be an earthquake or grandma's going to die. And he just froze there. And I thought, there's no earthquake and grandma's not dead. She was still alive at that point. And the light, as I was looking out to the front of the hallway, my brother seemed frozen. Very quickly, the glass seemed to bend like this with the light, and then this small figure came through the glass. It was about 3 foot tall, dressed entirely in black. It had an enormous helmet on its head, what I thought was a helmet. And as it came through the door returned to normal, and it shot into what was then our downstairs study and bedroom. And there was also a shower room next to that, because we had a study and bedroom down there, me and my brother shared, because we were twins. And all of a sudden, Roddy came out of his so-called trance, and I can't remember what my sister was doing, but it was all very quick. And then the whatever it was shot from the left of the corridor across the hall, up the stairs, disappeared. We couldn't find it. So that was the physical part. The non-physical part happened in the early hours of the morning, where I found myself in the hallway of where this thing had come through, lying on my back, roughly 3 feet above the ground, and unable to move. So I'm awake, but I can't move. But I feel like I'm being drawn by some unknown force through the glass of the kitchen door. So it's almost as if I've become translucent, and I'm wondering, how the hell is that possible? And as my body's being taken slowly through by some unknown force, head first towards the outside of the back garden. We had a big pond there and a patio. And I was as pulled out, I was arched upwards like this. And I could see in the sky all these UFOs. And the question was there, well, they're real. They're not a figment of anyone's imagination. But there was one object that wasn't moving, and it was a very large, disc-shaped, dirty silver, metal, bronzy colored object. And it wasn't lit up, but I could see it. And as soon as I clocked it, I felt myself being pulled towards it very quickly, very, very quickly, like being on a roller coaster, but upwards. And then before I hit it, I blacked out. And then there was another 2 parts to that, which was very disturbing, through some, a procedure that was carried out. But interestingly enough, and there were 3 reptilians. And of course, there was some greys present as well too, and one at the end that I kind of recognized. I'm not going to go into that because it's very long-winded. But when I eventually found the courage to find a UFO group and talk about my experiences, most of the people didn't understand about the reptilian link. And let me tell you, when I viewed them, when I was strapped to this bed, naked, hot, in this room that wasn't very large, but it looked like a medical center or something like that. I could see light directly ahead to the left, but where these guys were directly to my right. And as I clocked them, this intense horror engulfed me, because they looked like, I suppose, smaller versions of a T-Rex, I suppose, 3 of them. They were dark-skinned and they were very formidable. They just watched. They're slightly moving side by side in this strange gate, and they had this thick kind of misty type stuff around them. But that wasn't the main problem. The main problem was what obviously they had done or were doing, although they were there, because there was something that they were doing a procedure. And at that point, I lost it. So when I joined a UFO group and I came forward, because I thought, my God, I'm going bonkers. They were like, well, what are the reptilians? It's only the greys. And I was quite confused. And then, of course, I was approached by TV companies who got wind of the story, not by myself. I've never approached anyone for media attention. And I thought, oh, I'll go on TV and they might understand. Wrong choice, wasn't it? National TV, it was a live program. Nick Pope was there, who was lovely, and Georgina Bruni, the author of You Can't Tell the People. She's now sadly no longer with us, and neither is Nick. And I know Nick for a while. I always met him at the conventions when we were doing talks, conferences. And interestingly enough, I got involved in the Rendlesham case years later. That's another whole story. But the abduction, when that occurred, and then when I had been kind of like used as a object of ridicule, so to speak, I couldn't believe it. I was not only being attacked by the media, but I was also being attacked by people on the street, not physically, but in other ways. And even when I wrote a book that Cappelman Publishing Company Limited in England here decided to publish after my first psychic book, Reaching for the Divine, came out in 2007, and I believe Bridging the Gap Between the Psychic and UFO Phenomena came out in 2009, he wanted me to retract the part in the book about the reptilians, because his idea was that they did not fit into the ordinary curriculum of ufology. But luckily I had an article published by someone else about the whole event that described this. So no one would say, oh, you've had your book published and now these beings have suddenly appeared in your book that you didn't mention before. So I found myself in a bit of a difficult situation here. But going back very quickly here, there were two parts. One physical, where the being came through the door dressed in black. And then the other part was able to go through solid matter. And that puzzled me. And that, of course, then led me for years and years trying to think about this. In 1996, I wrote an article called Spirits in a Material World, which was published by Alien Encounters magazine. They called it revolutionary within its speculation, because I wanted to gear more into the greys, what they were doing. And I had this idea that they were, and I had it then extracting the real essence of you from this physical domain and bringing you into their domain. And as we know now, dealing with psychic phenomena, conscious studies, near-death studies, and of course the etheric body, gives me every reason to believe that these beings, or whatever they are and could possibly be interdimensional in origin. So that's always been then an interest to me. So I started to compose and create this model around the hypothesis of what these beings could possibly represent. So yeah.
Sometimes when I speak to people, I have no words. This is one of them. but it's quite interesting because I interviewed Kathleen Marsden a few months ago.
Wow.
An absolute sweetheart. She's really
lovely.
is. And we spoke about her uncle and auntie.
Yes.
So going back to the experiences that you encountered, and I won't go into the procedures because obviously that could be quite personal. But when you were on the, let's call it a surgical table or whatever you want to call it, what was you observing about your surroundings with regard to the kind of vehicle that you was in?
Yes, that's very interesting. I was on a very hard bed. There were straps to it, so I was strapped down. The legs were strapped. My arms were strapped. I felt like I could move my body, but my neck was hard for me to move, but I could move my head to the left and to the right. And where I was positioned, looking to my right, there were these fixtures. They looked like they were molded. There was one of them that was like kind of like curved round. I didn't see too much of what was on there, if there was anything on there. The walls were dark, so most of where I was quite dark. The only light that I remembered seeing was directly in front of me and to my left, and that turned out to be a small corridor when the procedure had completed its course. The main horror was seeing these, what people call reptilians. And there were some greys as well too, which were, there was nothing threatening to me about them. I know that people say all this stuff, but they just felt to me like they were workers, or they were just like androids, or, synthetic being, no emotion. But these things here, these guys here, they scared the crap out of me. And I'm sorry I have to use that word, because when you're met with something that you've never seen before, that you believe does not exist, and while your attention is drawn on them, and all I got back was no empathy, no love, nothing at all. I'm just a piece of meat on a slab. And while this procedure was taking place with the lower instrument that had been placed into the lower abdominal region, I could feel it within my lower abdominal area. So it felt organic. And of course, at that point, I lost it, because I just couldn't understand what was going on. And of course, what's interesting is that people will tell you what happened to you and how it was and what it was. And I will say to them, okay, that's fair enough, but I do not know what happened to me that night. All I can tell you is that the experience itself fitted the classic description of an abduction. And I did not want to then come forward and say, oh, I've been abducted by aliens. There was another part, the last part to this, when I was ejected from the ship. I mean, ejected, there were two greys that led me down, floated me down to the ground. There was another grey waiting for me. And I have illustrated, my brother has illustrated this. This is a theme that's been going on for a long time. And I'm still puzzled. And this grey that's standing in front of me is different from the others and the reptilians. And as it's standing there, it seems to be in a one-piece uniform, has knee-length boots. It has this stupid pointed hat on its head, but its face is more not, it's like a human but grey. It had a very pronounced chin, and its eyes were slightly not as wide as the greys, but kind of like this. And its nose was, well, there was no nose. It was like flat with two dots there. But it had its arms folded. It looked really smart. It had its arms folded, its chest out. It looked well built. And it was really angry with me. It was really, really angry with me. And I thought, you're angry with me? And I wanted to punch it. I couldn't move because I thought, you are angry with me, with what I've just gone on, with what's happened there. And when I asked and people said, did you speak in your mind? Heck, I just spoke to him. It was like, here, whatever. I thought I need to ask him a question. How the hell am I able to get through locked and bolted doors? How am I able to get through solid matter? And immediately he looked shocked, like this, like animated, shocked. And then what he did was he raised his head slowly to the underneath of, and there was a smaller craft above him. Sounds crazy, right? But he froze and he started to talk in a metallic, incomprehensible language. And as he froze, I then saw myself coming back with my head facing this way and crashing through the doors. Well, not crashing, they didn't smash, but like with such force, and then through and then back into my body. I had a nosebleed. And in the morning, my brother found I had triangular marks behind my right ear. There were 3 marks on my arm. I had profuse nosebleeds to the right nostril. The doctors were going to cauterize it. And there's another story about that. But we tried to take the picture on that day, the next day, of the right ear with a self-developing Kodak camera. It did not come out. No matter how many times we tried to take the photograph, my brother took it behind the ear. Now, Piers Sabak, because Piers Sabak here in England, he's into symbology, and he said something that shocked me. And this is why, with any experience, you do not add or subtract. You keep it exactly, you may have your thoughts and then add no. He said, Philip, what was the grey doing, the last part of that experience? And I said, well, it froze. It looked stunned and looked up and started to talk in an unintelligible rasp, electronic rasp that reminded me of the voice synthesizer we used to have for our, was it the ZX81, or I think it was the ZX81 with the 16K RAM pack we had. Anyway, he said, well, what was your brother doing that evening? And of course, he froze and looked up and said, there's going to be an earthquake or grandma's going to die. It's almost as if what I call the alien being Noddy, although he wasn't Noddy, I just call him Noddy, Enid Blyton's character. What Noddy was doing was mimicking what my brother had done, or my brother with him. So this gets into some very deep, very uncomfortable territory in terms of what these beings are, what the force behind it is, what it's doing. But that kind of shocked me because I thought I never saw it, but Piers Sabak did. He's written another book all about it and other cases with the symbology about the whole thing. So yes, it was very, very disturbing and something will never forget, I don't think.
I can imagine that you wouldn't forget, because something like that can obviously be quite traumatic.
Yes.
So was there any kind of communication between you and the alien, to say why they'd picked you or anything like that?
Nothing, absolutely nothing was communicated. The only thing that was communicated to me was when the 3 large beings, people call them reptilians, disappeared. They just went. the small grey that appeared more like a cream than a grey, cream-coloured than a grey, when it came out of the area where that light was to my direct left and ordered me to dress and follow it. So that was it. And it wanted me out. And there was, and I didn't know how that was to happen. But then what I thought was a wall opened up to a door. I saw the image of this huge tree. And then, of course, I was out. Like, these two greys were beside me, and I was ordered not to look at them as I was coming down to the ground. But that's when I saw Noddy standing there waiting for me. So I'm like, hang on just a minute. Now, most people will say, oh, come on, when you have an abduction, it's one event. This is a series of events that occurred that operated in chronological order. But Kathleen Marden said, because years and years ago when I was a kid, I had some very strange experiences as well, and reoccurring dreams. One of them kept repeating itself over and over again. And when on the last dream of that I had it, so I was awake but couldn't open my eyes. I let the dream sequence play out. I'm in this circle of stones, old ancient stones, and in the middle of this broken tower. And in the dream, I'm frustrated every time because I've got to get to each stone at a certain sequence in order to gain entry to the tower. And then I'd wait. Then the dream would end. And when I showed the image to my mother, she said to me, well, this is the property of Bignor House where we were kids. We lived on the grounds of a mansion. And my mother was, served the family. And she'd take us past this point every day. So it seems as though whatever this is, whatever the phenomena is, it seems to follow you. It seems to be, although it may use different guises, present itself in different themes, I don't know. But this is what led me then. Of course, the other part I have to add in here, the other area of House Strangers, there's been a few more, trust me, was when we saw the UFO with our maternal grandmother when we were aged 13. In the back of they had a big house. We were aged 13 at the time, me and my twin brother. We spent all our vacation periods there with them. And there was a silver orb about the size of a football that came with direct intent from the sky and came over our head. That's also been well documented. And that reminded me years later of the Foo Fighters that were reported in World War II. And of course, then we had... when I went to Stockwood High School in Luton, when we lived out there for a brief period, the school teachers were amazing. I can tell you, with me and my brother, we were bullied quite a lot, but the school teachers, I loved them. Miss Horton and Mr. Charles, who lent us his entire collection of paranormal encyclopedia that we could take on our vacation, because he learned of our experience, and he was very open to that. And then, of course, we had lots of others like Mr. Watson, our PE teacher, and Mr. David Pryor, who really took a shine to me and my brother. And, and just wonderful times. But living through that as a kid, trying to understand it, you were bullied, not the teachers, but people. They would bully you. You've seen a UFO, you're crazy, you're a liar. So now in our day, it's not because you want any form of reprieve from what's happened with these people. But now look what's happening. Look what's happening in the world now. And my understanding of the UFO, UAP phenomena has never really changed. I never said they come from another planet or they're aliens from another planet, little green men, or for God's sake. I think we're dealing with something far more complex than that. And that's why the system that we serve are adamant not to reveal this to the public.
And like you say, since we've talked last, it's probably almost about a year ago. Like, you've got all these documents that have been released, and there's so much information coming out now that for people to say, well, what you experienced, Philip, did not happen and you're a liar. There's so much information and so much different examples from intelligent professional people, the pilots in the aircraft and such like that. How can you say that something like this does not exist? Because there's too much evidence. We might not be able to explain it, but it's out there, and the evidence is getting more and more each day.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, people are now talking about disclosure. Well, my take on disclosure is not, I do love Steven Spielberg's films. I think he is a master of this. I love him and his work. and George Lucas as well too. I love their work. They are amazing guys. But I watched Disclosure Day, and I wasn't quite sure of the ending, and I don't think it would happen the way that it was portrayed within the film. I'm not going to do any spoilers here for those good folk who haven't watched the film. It is a very good film. Yeah, it's a very good film. There's got a lot of very interesting aspects in there, I've got to tell you now. But I think disclosure is going to be very difficult, and it won't be just the way that information is released as is happening now into the public domain, because most people would be asking, well, is this genuine or is this not? And if we think about it, Lee, for decades, the media cartel has done nothing but douse the whole subject matter, poo-pooing it, making it seem ridiculous. So you've educated the public into this belief, and now suddenly you want them to believe that it's all true. No, 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 no. Those of you, the powers that be at the top, have to learn that you have educated in your own sly way to the general public exactly how you wanted them to see this subject matter, and then come forward and then say, oh, ladies and gentlemen, we may have to backtrack like our government's doing at the moment and has been for a long time, and do a U-turn and say, unfortunately, there is some truth to the matter. But my part here that I'll add in here is, but it's far more complex than we think that you can actually take or understand. So I'm all for disclosure, and you have to be very careful when you're involved in these subject matters, because not everyone is, dancing to the same tune, and certainly not singing from the same hymn sheet in terms of ufology, cryptozoology, life after death, spirituality, please. Dear Lord, some people claim they're spiritual when they're anything but. So it's a bit of a nightmare. But what I've done, and what I've always done, is I've tried to keep myself working on certain theoretical models, applications, and, like any other good folk out there, good researcher, because, it's all about all of us. It's about you, Lee, about me, and many other hundreds of thousands of people out there who are doing their own research. We all count. I'm not up for the stars and stripes and, the accolades, although I have had some and I'm very honored. But it's not about, look at me, I want the top, I want it all, I want the Holy Grail. And people may get upset with me. And I know I've been attacked by some people for saying that. But Lee, it's the truth. I will say to them that we are, each and every one of us, part of that disclosure, as well as we are part of that phenomena. It's not unique to one single individual on this planet.
And I've got so many questions right now. It's sort of like, if I just came out with them all at once, you wouldn't understand a word I was saying, because they'd come out so quick. So one thing that I do find fascinating is going back, let's just say 10 years as an example. You used to have the Greys or the little green men or whatever, and that was it. But as time has come closer to modern day, there's so many descriptions of so many different types of alien creature, for want of an easy word, that if all this was not real, where would all of these descriptions, and some of them are a lot of perfect detail, where would these descriptions come from? So something must be putting that kind of information into people's minds for them to be able to describe that.
And you have said it admirably, to, put into people's minds. Now, in my new book, if I dare promote it here, Hijacked, The Hidden War for the Human Soul, which deals with the Gnostic cosmology, but also I came up with a theory called the subconscious gateway theory. And this may possibly theoretically tie in other elements of what we call the supernatural, the paranormal, ufology. Because you're correct. I mean, I've studied, although Paul Sinclair, my good friend Paul Sinclair, is the mastermind behind the Dogman or werewolf, research, as well as UFO research in Bempton. But let's take for example the Dogman. Now, I know and have been in touch with Martin Groves, who had a horrific experience out there while he was turkey hunting with one of his partners, his officers, because he was a sheriff there. Their wives had let them go off turkey hunting. The land between the lakes, or the land between the rivers, I can't remember which one it is now, but one of those. And when he described the dogman, you have these glowing eyes and this kind of intelligence behind them. People are asking, well, where are the dogmen? I mean, most people believe that they've got a base underground. Some people believe they're genetically modified for military purposes. And you've got those who understand them to be supernatural in nature. The same for the Sasquatch. Sometimes there's mind speak from them. People experience the tall, the tall whites, and the tall greys, the short greys, the reptilians. I mean, my argument is, where are they all? Where are they all hanging out? And this is interesting because when you are touched from a young age, I suppose we could say that, I can only speak from experience, the singularity itself is strange. And the force that's behind it is able to mold itself in, I suppose, any number of guises, I suppose is the right word. It could be possible that what we're trying to understand is something far deeper and may deal with a lot more of what we represent beyond the physical nature of our corporeal nature of reality, in terms of spirit, consciousness, the soul, whatever you want to call it. Because there's another interesting factor. I know someone mentioned this a long time ago, and I will always give credit. I can't remember the name. I will never take credit for something that's not mine. But what was interesting is when Whitley Strieber's book Communion came out, I think it was 1980s, was it 87? I think it was around about 87 time. A lot of people were captivated by the image of the grey that was drawn on the front cover. They seemed to have some kind of spooky feel to it. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people started experiencing these greys. So when you mentioned, and this is mentioned in Hijack, with part of that's only a small part of the subconscious gateway theory, because if we think about it, beyond the conditioning of the conscious mind, and the system that we serve can program that, can infiltrate that, can suppress it. And beyond the conscious mind is the subconscious mind. And my understanding is when you go beyond the subconscious, that leads into the superconscious. Everything is within. So every single thing within creation comes from within and projected without. So it's interesting how when we see these beings that most notably come on a level of not just high strangeness or in varied forms like the dogman or the Sasquatch or the greys or the reptilians. They will come into our world within physicality because they need to breach this dimension in some way. But what's interesting is that all of this is, I believe, in the superconscious state where everything is created. So I think this opens up a lot of areas of suppression of why the system wants to invoke this fear upon the populace, wants to control our consciousness, wants to dumb us down, doesn't want us to know anything more than the fact that you are a biological automaton with a sell-by date and that you will obey and be taught what we teach you, and anything else to do with UFOs or psychic phenomena or cryptozoology or life after death must be poo-pooed because that is a threat to the overall control of the system that we serve. So this then open up another area of kind of like contemplation for me, because, and dare I claim now, well, I have for a very long time, that I'm a goddamn psychic medium. I thought, dear God, there's the man that deals with UFOs and now he's talking to the dead. Whatever reputation I had, I thought would be flushed down the toilet. But I was adamant to find out what all of this was meaning. And with the psychic component, again, we're dealing with mind. Oh, this person's a psychic. Well, we're all psychic. You've got a brain. It's a transmitter, recorder, and receiver of information. The brain is merely a portal for consciousness, but it has been hijacked and programmed by the system and put, kind of like narrowed within its field frequency of awareness. And of course, the system that we serve can project through symbology or other means, psychological manipulation, fear, control. They can control what you, to an extent, they want you to see what you're seeing. So I believe that there are many, many factors here which are quite interesting. And I think we're dealing with elements of a super conscious mindset that can become anything, absolutely anything. And this is why we are having this problem in trying to establish for all these decades where the UFOs are and where the reptilians are, where the greys are, life after death, and so on and so forth. And I have another part I'll just add in very quickly. I also suggested that for this energy to come into our realm, it needs to construct itself as it comes into our physical domain. It has to build itself up in order to have some kind of physicality, as it were, even if it's temporary. And it reminded me a little bit of The Thing. Do you remember that film, The Thing, Lee?
In the 70s or 80s with,
That's right.
Yeah, on at the Arctic Circle or whatever it was, yeah.
That's right. And where it could replicate or take on the form of something else. And that interested me all the way back then. So yeah, there we have it.
For those people that are listening, I'm now going to do the mind exploded.
You and me both then.
But that's absolutely fascinating, that you come out with that. And the reason why I mentioned about thought being put into you or given to you, I was talking to a guy last week who was talking about Ouija boards, going off on a bit of a tangent, and that the amount of people that go, oh, you're pushing the planchette and all this. And he literally came out to say, well, if you're pushing the planchette and there's 3 or 4 of you, you must have all got together beforehand to say, I'm going to spell the word Philip or I'm going to spell the word Lee. But if you're not doing that and one person decides that they want to spell that word, you're going to be pushing against those other people. So where is that name coming from? It's got to come from somewhere. And he was saying that he speaks to like a spirit guide, and he goes, well, we're putting that information into your mind so your subconscious can then move the planchette. So yes, technically it is you moving it, but we're guiding you to move it to spell that particular word.
That's correct. And there was another instance that we had experimented. We've done everything, I think. Well, not everything, but a lot of things in terms of our pursuit of truth. And my brother, myself, and a friend, Susan, and this also has been registered a long time ago, we had used a Ouija board. And in order to make sure that we weren't being tricked by any one of us, we had Susan go out of the room and write something on a piece of paper and put it in her back pocket so that no one would know. She was not to use the board, just me and my brother. So when we asked whatever it was where we had the Ouija board in operation, can you spell out the words that Susan has written on a piece of paper for us? It spelt out trickery. And we said, no, we want you to prove that you are what you are. Because my brother and I think most people know in ufology, we don't stand for any nonsense. We're very grounded gentlemen. We're very open, but not gullible. And we want to know. And with me and my brother on that board, it's spelt out DARTH, Darth MAUL, Darth Maul, or however that was spelt. Because Susan, and then of course Susan looked shocked. She pulled the piece of paper out of her back pocket and it was Darth Maul. So one of the things I did find with that is that, most people, religious people, will tell you you're dealing with the devil. Oh, come on. I mean, there are opposing forces, positive and negative forces. I mean, it's not a man in a suit with horns, and a pitchfork. But it was interesting because we felt that with the energy with that, it was not pandering to what we were really wanting to know. So, this is very interesting, I think, because it's not just through Ouija boards. I think the phenomena can come through any apparatus, I suppose, if it needs to. I'm not saying they're all bad. If you're using it properly, the Ouija board properly, as we understand, then we always considered ourselves to be protected by love and light, so to speak, and that we would be guided and we wouldn't be harmed, and we would use it sensibly and not stupidly, asking stupid questions like, that you shouldn't. But it was an interesting, so I agree that the force itself will use you as the puppet, rather like a medium, as they bring their thoughts through to you. Sometimes they will use you as their puppet. I'm giving a very, very quick example here. I remembered many long years ago when I started my mediumship with a medium who used to work on cold cases for the FBI in America. And she was a brilliant medium as well. And I was reading for a lady, and she came out, a young lady, and her father came through. And, I saw her father. I said, "Oh, I've got your father here." And she said, "Oh, yes, lovely." And I could see this golden Labrador, not giving it away here, golden Labrador sitting next to him. She said, "Oh, yes, he had a golden Labrador." And then all of a sudden, I took my hand and I covered my eyes and I said, "But I can't see anything. I can't see anything at all." And she reached over and she said to me, "Lovey, he was blind." So you see, what was happening was that the energy of that deceased individual had motivated me to put my hand over my eyes. I didn't feel like I was controlled. It just felt like the natural thing to do. So in going back to what you're saying about your friend, absolutely, they will use you as the instrument or the puppet in order to relay what they need to. So that is very interesting. So I just wanted to add that in. A remarkable case with the Darth Maul, because the new film that was released by George Lucas, the new versions, I still like Star Wars Empire and Return of the Jedi. They're my favorite of all time. But that was why we'd asked that question.
Yeah, and funnily enough, the guy that played Darth Maul, I've met him 3 or 4 times. He's another really nice guy too.
They normally are. The bad ones normally are in the film industry.
So, just going back a little bit, because I know we went off on a little bit of a tangent.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk nowadays that they are not, the aliens, so to speak, are not visiting. They was already here, and we are the hybrids, but they are also amongst us, but they're either on a different frequency, so we can't see them in our normal day-to-day life, or they're kind of moving us forward towards a particular scenario that's going to play out. So what's your thoughts on that, Philip?
Well, Genesis itself, I've always been interested primarily in Genesis about our human evolution. And you can't tell me through religious ideologies that, suddenly Adam and Eve turned up as if baked out of an oven and then suddenly appeared. There had to be some kind of modification involved with that. And I believe, like many other researchers, that what we call gods were perhaps, they call them extraterrestrials. I think they were here before us. And I think looking into the Gnostic cosmology, or Gnostic texts, so to speak, texts that were found in Nag Hammadi in 1945, buried in jars, hidden. Going back in the day, I think that the system didn't want this information to come out, because within the ordinary biblical passages that we have in the Bibles, it's a very plain version of we have to reach out to something or someone. Yet the Gnostics texts describe a completely different story, that everything is within and not without. And certainly within the connection with these demigods, or these fallen angels, I would rather call them, I believe that they modified the human absolutely through varied models. I also believe the Garden of Eden was a processing plant, and that we had evolved to certain levels. But there's a spiritual war here, I think, and they're not all the ETs are bad. I'm just talking about our creators. The truly shocking part is that the whole of the religious factions would crumble if the truth, I believe, really came out. I think they would literally fall, because they would understand that they were following a false doctrine. Now they will come forward and tell me that you are wrong, that you're the servant of Satan. I've been told that before by a 7-year-old child who allegedly wasn't indoctrinated into the religious beliefs. Oh yes, I'm a servant of Satan. Well, I'll sit down and have a pack of cards with him and talk about him and see what's going on. Have a couple of drinks with him. But I believe seriously that there is a huge conspiracy of silence and of covering of the past. And in terms of where they, so-called ETs, want us to go, well, I've had people also ramming down my throat. They're here to help us. They want us to change our ways. Well, they've had many opportunities to do that within our human evolution. And not once has that happened. Every time we seem to advance, we seem to be pushed back, because we know that the past has been rewritten. So I'm not so certain or sure that a lot of them are out for our best interests. I think they're here for what they want. And this leads us back within Gnostic cosmology with regards to the story, which makes more sense to me, in the only clear sense, with energies, our ability as the human to create, to produce the spirit that we have, and that the gods of old didn't seem to have any of them. They were denied that. And this all leads back to the fall of Yaldabaoth, who was the Immaculate Conception from Pistis Sophia, who was the aeon that came away from the monad, the godhead. So you can see centralized themes that seem to be kind of near, but the real main emphasis has been discarded and distorted. So it makes for fascinating speculation, fascinating theoretical content. Truth is, Lee, that you and I, we can scratch our heads, and I don't think we'll truly know the truth of it all. But I myself, personally, I think that some of these themes kind of make sense to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that, as I said, I said to you earlier, I've seen the other side. And when I saw it, it wasn't just seeing it. I didn't go down a tunnel or a light. And that's another whole department of debate there. But when I said, because you can dig your own grave, and I think I've done that. I think I've got 3 of my own graves dug tonight. But when I saw the other side, let me tell you, it was a shock because I knew it. And it's not just knowing it, it's being a part of something much larger, another version of me that is the real me. But while I was having that experience, I'm like, well, what am I doing here? And why am I in a counterfeit version of this world that with that world is the real world? It is the most remarkable thing. I mean, there's so much attached to this that fascinates me. And I sometimes fear that I'm running out of time in terms of Earth time, in terms of research and trying to work things out. And there's a lot of brilliant people out there, but I've always chipped away and dug for many, 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 many long years. And I think, like many others, that we are close to kind of like revealing something extraordinary and very different to what we have been programmed to believe. And yet, unfortunately, within the UFO department, within cryptozoology, life after death, paranormal, and so on and so forth, for some it becomes religious. And they will not sway, they will not change, they will not allow their consciousness to go through a process of transmutation or develop or grow. I always have. And that is dangerous territory when people are starting to tell you how it is and what it is, when we're still scratching our heads. I think we've come a long way, though, in terms of theoretical content and in what we may be understanding as factual in terms of, especially with UFOs now, UAPs, in what they may represent.
I'm right on the fence now because I either want to talk to you forever or I want to go, Philip, you've just blown my mind again. Please stop it.
Oh, I am sorry. I think for me, I'm like a kid. I remember a passage from someone that asked C.S. Lewis, Professor Clive Staples Lewis, wonderful author of the Screwtape Letters, and a Christian. And I'm not a Christian. I don't profess any faith other than, and I hate the word spirituality, but nearing towards the true Godhead. But someone asked him when he wrote The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the Narnia Chronicles, they said, which would you prefer to be? Would you prefer to be the magician or the boy? And he said, oh no, I would prefer to be the boy caught in the magician's spell, because the boy is then encapsulated in magic and wonder. The magician, it's boring because he knows all the tricks. And I thought, do you know what? I really like that. I don't think that's the correct way that I've said it, but it's a roundabout way that he would rather be the boy caught in the magician's spell than the magician casting it. And I thought, and would you believe, I'm very much interested in scholars and other authors, and one of his biographers, and this is everything here is fact as we know it, said that C.S. Lewis used to have these experiences as a boy of these moments called joy. In fact, what these moments were was like a glimpse of eternity, and then they would diminish. And I've had them. And he was frustrated because he couldn't get to the bottom of what these were. And he called those moments of joy, but he was confounded as to what they actually represented. And this is why I believe that within our consciousness, I couldn't work out why, if we do elect to come down here and incarnate and go through all this, why we have mind wipe. Because when I was there, sharing the same space at the same time, but that was more real and I knew it, I could deal with that. People say, oh, it's because you're not allowed to remember because your mind won't be able to deal with it. Hogwash. When you're dealing with the mind, it's a portal for consciousness. It's a transmitter to other dimensions of reality. We know that, especially through near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, Robert Monroe with his theories as well too and his experiences. But what I'm saying here is that you can deal with that, and that changes you because you are knowing that the system doesn't want to let up. And through all of this barrage and, corridors that lead you to dead ends, religion, science, all these things that bring most people to a standstill and say, oh, I can't believe in that because I'll be made to look a fool and people will reject me. And you think, oh, what a load of hogwash. So basically here is interesting. I think there's a reason why we're here, but I think, as I've said in my new book, the system's been hijacked for a very long time. And we're seeing elements of that through political warfare, disruption within the world. Nothing's ever changed there at all, and now with the UFO question where the system or those behind it, I suppose they're private companies that are in possession of the non-biologics and the extraterrestrial material, they are not wanting to give that information out. It's like, no, we're going to keep you in the dark. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's, if you just switch on your TV and go to the movie channel, there are so many movies about aliens and creatures and magic and the list goes on. And for the powers that be to say, yes, we do have something, but we're not telling you because you can't handle the truth. Come on. We've seen most of it in TV movies. The worst case scenario, like Independence Day, for example, when they want to come and destroy the world. Sort of like, so if it's not as bad as what that's going to be, then why can't you just come out and tell us?
Yes, that's right. I think, to be honest with you, that they must have some prior knowledge for a very long time, because I do remember seeing a documentary that was allegedly true where some American evangelists were asked to go and visit some key members from the military personnel in America, very high up. And the military told these holy people that they had to prepare their people to explain to them that there are such things as aliens, reptilians they mentioned, and UFOs. They are in possession of, non-biological entities and non-biologics and hardware. Now, what do you think that those priests, if I may use a very gentle word to use for these good men, because, regardless of our differences, I absolutely honor them. I think what they're doing, if it helps other people with their beliefs, that's absolutely fine with me. Never upset someone's structured belief systems, but we are digging for that truth that they hope they won't see. And this will happen because if that the governments or not so much the governments, if the systems behind it did reveal to the public, the priests will tell their people, and their people will say, "Oh my God, this is the work of the devil." Yeah. I mean, you're not going to win because they're already structured within their mindset of how they see their life, how they see their beliefs. So this is going to be very, very complex territory for a lot of people to understand. So I think disclosure will not happen this way. If it is going to happen, if at all, and I use that word, if at all, it's going to take a lot. It's going to have to take for them to come forward and to reveal themselves. But even then, if they did it on TV, because you can't get to every person, people are going to say that's a man in a suit, that's CGI. You see where this is coming from.
Yeah.
So unless some kind of magic is going to happen where they actually connect with each and every one of us here and then do something to us to make us aware of that, then you're going to have a hard time convincing the public that such entities exist. And that was their program from the very beginning. And I'll just quickly point out here that the wonderful Abbey Loeb, the professor and 3-Eye Atlas that came into our solar system, I think it was last year. Look at all the fuss that happened there. And the NASA feeds that were cut from the Mars rover when it came into close proximity for a clear visual image of it to be given. And then it went the live feeds were cut. And then it was almost as if it just vanished. Now, we have satellite technology that's absolutely incredible. We get grainy images from the moon, of other, but we can have the most amazing images of new stars being born. So I believe that there's a system in place, and it's no conspiracy from this system that is deliberately intent in covering the human's eyes from anything that threatens whatever establishment is running the show here. So, I was praying that 3i Atlas would do a U-turn and come here. Heck, a lot of those in the military establishments were running around like headless chickens because that's exactly what they feared. But what are they fearing? What are they fearing? That if they came here, whoever they are, whatever they are, that their show would be over? That's it? Game over for them? Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah,
I really do. I believe that.
That's an interesting point, because it's like, we have a certain amount of control right now. If some different species just came and went, "Hi, we're here," it would completely change the world as we know it.
You got it. And everyone will be like, "Oh my God, you've lied to us." Yes, you have lied to us, haven't you? Oh, but we can justify that. But what's really nasty about this whole thing? What's really, really nasty? It's like in politics. You'll never get to the one person or whoever they are behind all of this. You'll never get to them. And so this shows you in the shadow governments, I call them, that this is their main operation, to silence or to, let's just put it this way, contain those if they speak too much or they bring too much out in the public domain. And the people need to ask if they believe that a lot of this phenomena is love and light. And I'm not saying that all of it isn't, but the majority of it does not seem to be on that level. Why do they secrete themselves in the shadows? Why do not they reveal themselves to us now? Why haven't they helped us with the state of our planet? And going back, people say, oh, they have. Well, where is the evidence? It's true to say that we progressed as a species, that we were very advanced, but then it's almost as if the system collapsed, or it wanted us to collapse because we were getting too smart, and then sent us back into the dark ages again. So, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, and not primarily all dancing around with the greys on the moon or something like that. I think, seriously, getting to the heart of what's really behind this is what we're up against. And this also takes into consideration those other disturbing elements that I won't mention here about, that's found around certain paranormal UFO sites. Which people tend to pass away as mere nothing. So yes, I think we've got a fight on our hands, Lee. I really do.
Yeah, it's a difficult. I wouldn't say it's a difficult time to be in. It's an unsure, interesting time to be in, because we don't know the truth.
No.
Will we ever find it or be given it? Maybe, maybe not. But right now, we're just being given a few crumbs every now and then, just to keep that hunger at bay. And if the things did come out, what they say is true, I think society would kind of crumble to a certain extent, because you've got those people that want it to be true and have so many questions. And then you have certain people going, no, I'm not putting up with this, and then just cock the shotgun and get ready to go hunting.
Yeah, I will say to you, though, I just want, like you, the truth, the holy grail of what all of this means about what we are, what we represent, where we come from, the creation process, the interesting aspect of interdimensional communication, not only with UFOs or UAPs and aliens, but those other phenomena that grace our planet, and also about the sovereignty of what we represent going beyond that physical nature of reality. When you lose someone, when you lose those you love, there's something that changes in you. Like, just taking one example, and it's like, it's in here, right? This is not just here that you're seeing, but in here. That changes you. And I think that is the most glorious thing, because what I saw over there, there's no words, because you can't find them. And it's like, that is like waking up. So I believe that we're asleep, and I believe that it's time for us to awaken to the lies, the deception, and the control that's been implemented by these evil, corrupt I won't even call them humans. I don't think they perhaps are. I mean, what kind of human would do that to other people? I don't know.
Yeah, like you say, and that's an interesting point. And yeah, we are coming to close towards the end, but I've still got so many questions. We have to do a part 3, Philip. You know we are. I was speaking to the same guy who's talking about Ouija boards.
Oh, yes.
And I'm going off on a tangent again. And he was talking to a spirit that says that we have a certain amount of reincarnations.
We have only got God help us.
Yeah, and yeah, he actually said, "Well, what number am I on?" And I'm on number 6, kind of thing. So the fact what you've been talking about, and the fact that you've said that you've kind of been to the other side, yes, and you wanted to stay there. What's your kind of concept on reincarnation?
I don't know. I've read it, looked into it. I don't know what happens, how that process is achieved. And I did do some near-death studies in The Eternal Avatar, the book that came out from Brandon Thomas. He's of Expanding Reality in America, and called The Eternal Avatar. And there was a case with a guy who had a life between life session. In one life, he was a doctor of medicines, of herbs. He had the perfect life, perfect family, perfect children, and he was on his deathbed dying. When he went over to the other side, he saw this council of souls, and they were kind of pushing him to go back to Earth. You've got to push, you've got to go, because Earth is coming into a great time. They'll need your knowledge. So he came back onto the Earth plane, and he was one of the patients in Auschwitz. So how can you go from progression, and just think about this, from being a doctor of medicine and having the perfect life, and then coming back and then being a patient yourself. Now, the good friend didn't want to really understand that part, but I'm like, hang on just a minute, that doesn't make any sense to me. So, I think that there's a lot more that we could talk about at some point in the future with regards to the incarnation process. I don't know how that's done, but the warnings as well that most other cultures have drawn towards those parallels of the reincarnation implementation itself. So that's something else I've been looking into, quite interesting. So I just hope when I get back over there, I find the right way to get back, because I know I want to get out of here. I'm out of here, man. If it's like that was like the real world, it's like, oh my God, every form of potentiality is linked there or not here. I want to get back there again.
See, and that would have been absolutely perfect if there was just like a cloud of smoke and you disappeared, and I was there talking to myself. It's like, wow.
Oh,
yeah.
People will think me cynical.
Yeah, perfect crescendo. Philip, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'd like to say that I've learned so much, but you've actually blown my mind yet again.
Well, I blow mine every time. I always joke, and I do have a wicked sense of humor. Just say here quickly, and people like that, you can't say things like that. I've got a sense of humor, right? That's a human part of me. I said, if you want to see where I am in a couple of years' time, I'll be in a mental institute. So I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I'll be happy there with as long as I've got a word processor or a computer, and my vape, I'll be happy. So there we are. That's me, all human. None of this, I am grounded like anyone else. I'm a human like anyone else. I have my faults. I'm not perfect. I may be wrong in some areas, but I'm trying to hold things together here and dealing with the stuff that we're linking with. So that's really interesting and fascinating. And remember, you're just as important too.
I will. I will tell the wife that. She might disagree, but I will definitely tell her that. So just before we go, Philip, you mentioned Hijacked, which is your new book, but you've got something else in the pipeline as well that do you want to talk about, or do you want to leave it for now?
Yes, no, I am actually, I've just released Hijacked. I didn't go through an ordinary publisher with this because I wanted more control of it. So it's Hijacked, The Hidden War for the Human Soul, as ebook and paperback. And that's a beautiful, I love this book. It's lovely. And my new book, I don't have a title. It's about past lives, parallel lives, time dilations, the other side. So I'm working on that now. So that's going to take about a year before that gets finished. But I'm really grateful to you, Lee. Thank you so much for having me on board. It's been wonderful. I love it.
Me too. Like I say, I was so looking forward to talking to you again because I knew that you'd blow my mind. And we'll definitely have you back when the new book comes out, so we can talk about the conversation that we kind of finished with, and you'll just blow my mind again. I know you will. But my friend, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I've said, you have a great rest of the day, and hopefully England will win the World Cup, but we never know.
Well, I can assure you of one thing: there'll be a lot of angry people if they don't.
Yeah,
God bless. Thank you very much, Lee. God bless.
You're welcome. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.